Hey guys, Ducks Hockey and More is back at you here. Trade deadline was just yesterday on Friday. Lots of big names moving. We're going to talk about some of the most improved teams and who they added and how it helps them. Stick around, guys. Hey guys, welcome back. Ducks Hockey and More. Look, trade deadline was huge, right? Lots of stuff happened. Lots of names were moved. We were anticipating that, of course, but it was one of the most exciting trade deadlines I think I've ever watched and been a part of in terms of, who went where and that kind of thing. It was lots of rumors, lots of anticipation, lots of, just hype, and it was pretty crazy to see it all go down. I wanted to touch on in this video just kind of some of the big winners, if you will, and some of the most improved teams after the NHL trade deadline. Let's just dive right into it, right? I want to start with the number one team in the NHL, and they have been all year long, the Boston Bruins, the mighty Bruins. Listen, Boston, going into the trade deadline, best team in the NHL. They kind of set the bar, if you will. And the teams in the East specifically obviously needed to improve to match what Boston is doing without the additions they made. But the Bruins, being the Bruins, became even better. So let's break down real quick what the Bruins did. They're already stacked. They're already the best team in the NHL. They were the fastest team in NHL history to get to 100 points. They did it in 61 games. But Boston goes out and they add Dmitry Orlov, who they got from the Washington Capitals. They also got Garnet Hathaway. And, on Friday, I believe, they added Tyler Bertuzzi from the Red Wings. So think about what Boston already has. And then they go and they add on the defensive side Orlov. They add some grit and some scoring depth with Hathaway and Bertuzzi. My God, people, Boston is even better. Can you believe that? Is that even doable? It is. They did it. I want to real quick touch on Orlov. This guy's money. That was the best out of all the players they've added. Dmitry Orlov was the big one, in my opinion. He had 3 goals in 43 games with Washington this year. He's got 3 goals in just 4 games already with Boston since the trade. Hello? There you go. Sometimes, and I've talked about this before, certain players just kind of like a John Klingberg in Anaheim. Their offensive abilities, in this case, just aren't there with the team they're playing on. They move to a new environment, a new set of team players, and the chemistry all of a sudden, their numbers take off. They start to play even better. The puck starts going in the net. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. So Orlov is obviously feeling it in Boston, and I'm sure he's happy to be there. Another notable thing that just happened with the Boston Bruins is they locked up Pasta. David Pastrnak has signed an 8-year deal. I think it was worth $90 million. So they have locked him up as part of their future. So they are definitely going to be around playoff-wise and competitiveness for years to come, right? That's definitely what they did. And they've got Tyler Hall and it was Foligno who are on the IR. So 2 very key pieces of their team on the IR, but what do? They go out and they get Bertuzzi, they go out and get Hathaway. Those guys can just jump right in, fill those voids, and Boston is just rolling, right? Great moves by Boston to an already awesome team. They've just gotten better, like I said. So Boston Bruins, it's definitely still the team to beat in all of the NHL, and especially the East. Okay, moving on. Number 2, we got to hurry up because we got a lot of teams to cover. Number 2, the Carolina Hurricanes. They're 40-12-8, so they're like the second best team in the NHL right now, behind Boston. They made some minor moves, minor upgrades, nothing crazy. Max Pacioretty's out for the season. That hurts them, but they add some size and some scoring depth with Jesse Puljujarvi from the Edmonton Oilers. Hopefully this will invigorate him, and maybe he'll start to get some scoring, get his scoring touch going again. They also add Shane Gostisbehere from Arizona to add some scoring depth and puck moving skills for the power play and just in general on the blue line. So yeah, there you go. Carolina, they didn't do a whole lot, but they did make some upgrades, and I think that's going to help them. They didn't really need to do a lot other than maybe add some scoring depth. I think they did that. I mean, Puljujarvi doesn't add a ton of that. A little bit. Gostisbehere a little bit more, especially on the power play. So good for Carolina there. Edmonton Oilers. The Edmonton Oilers, we've been talking about it in other trade videos. They are in desperate need of defensive upgrades. And they were linked to every defenseman that was on the trade market for the last few months, right? Well, one of the names that I never even mentioned and I never even read about, Mattias Ekholm of the Nashville Predators, ended up going to Edmonton. So huge addition to their blue line by adding a defensive-minded defenseman, which is what they needed, to help bolster that blue line and help keep the puck out of their own net. They've been struggling with that this year. So I believe, in my personal opinion, they needed another one. They needed a couple of defensemen, not just one. They definitely have improved their defense with Ekholm. I think they need a little bit more. We'll see what happens. They also added Nick Bjugstad from Arizona as well. By trading Jesse Puljujarvi away, they kind of needed to fill that void. So they did that with God, I kill names. Bjugstad. There you go. Anyways, good defensive forward in that guy. Hey, number 4, moving on, New Jersey. So New Jersey is obviously a powerhouse in the East as well. By the way, the East is stacked. The West did a little bit. The East did a lot. You'll notice that as we go through this. The New Jersey Devils, Timo Meier was linked to them big time. That was pretty much where everybody expected him to go, and sure enough, he did. New Jersey landed Timo Meier. Good for them. Wasn't a big surprise, but it ended up happening. So New Jersey, who's already a stacked offensive team, just added some size and some scoring ability with him. They also added Curtis Lazar from Vancouver, which is great. Good penalty killing guy, good face-off guy. So that's going to help them through the playoffs. They're going to make some noise. New Jersey Devils, man. The New York Rangers. The New York Rangers obviously landed Vladimir Tarasenko early on, and then they went and added Patrick Kane. So Patrick Kane did end up going to the New York Rangers, which is where he wanted to go. So those two juggernaut, I mean, they've got 4 Stanley Cups between the two of them. What do you say? I mean, they just added that to an already offensive-packed New York Ranger lineup. So New York Rangers, they got better, and they're going to make some noise. We'll see what happens. They've got good D. They've got great goaltending. I mean, and they added Kane and Tarasenko. Ottawa. The Ottawa Senators. Now, they're poised to try to get into the playoffs this year. They might just do that. They landed a huge name that was rumbling around out there in defenseman Jacob Chychrun. So Chychrun goes from Arizona to the Ottawa Senators. Kind of one of those teams where nobody really saw that. A lot of the stuff that I read and was watching as far as rumors go and where he might land, Ottawa wasn't one of them. They weren't high on the list of things, So kind of off the radar trade, but Ottawa goes all in on the D, adding Chychrun. That really shows that they want to get in the playoffs this year, next year, and they want to become a competitive team year after year. So good for Ottawa. I think that's a big deal in Ottawa. I really do. It says a lot on where they want to go with this team. Moving on, we're going fast because we got lots of teams to cover. The Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, Maple Leafs are probably the most changed team after the deadline, right? They've added like 6 notable names. Let me go down them real quick. Ryan O'Reilly, there's a big one. Noel Acciari, Sam Lafferty, Jake McCabe, defenseman out of Chicago, Eric Gustafson out of, I believe, Washington, and then Luke Schenn from Vancouver. So they got depth at the forward position. They got more depth at the defensive on the blue line position. So Toronto went all in. They really did. All in for sure. But the one thing that stands out with all those players, okay, to me at least, is how big they've gotten. They're bigger and they're more physical, and they're more defensive-minded now, okay? Ryan O'Reilly's a great two-way center. Luke Schen's a big physical guy. I mean, you think about somebody, Jake McCabe, stay-at-home type of guy, defensive-wise. So I think Toronto's looking at this as based on, they've got Boston, they've got Carolina, they've got Tampa. These are the teams they're going to have to get through, or at least a couple of them, right? And it's more likely going to be Tampa Bay in that first round. At least that's the way it's looking as of right now. I think they've given themselves the best shot to do that, to get out of that first round and beat Tampa. All in all, Toronto went all in. They made the biggest changes. I mean, Jesus, like a third of their team is new. So either way, look for Toronto to make a lot of noise. Moving on, the Minnesota Wild. The Wild added some players. Gustav Nyquist from Columbus, John Klingberg from the Anaheim Ducks. They also added left winger Marcus Johansson and Oscar Sundqvist from Detroit. So Nyquist has 22 points, Klingberg 24, Johansson 28 points, and Sundqvist 21 points. So they added a lot of offensive depth, defensive depth with Klingberg. So Minnesota, in that central where you got to compete with Dallas, Winnipeg, Colorado, they made their mark known. I think Minnesota they're better, they're deeper. I think they did a lot of good things with those signings, and they didn't give up a whole ton to get it either. Talking about the Central, Dallas, the Dallas Stars. They went out and added Max Domi, from Chicago. It was kind of a up in the air thing. Domi was, in the beginning, it didn't seem like he wanted to leave Chicago, and maybe Chicago would keep him around. Then you started hearing things about Domi might be moved. Well, he got moved. He's now a Dallas Star. Traded from Chicago. Chicago gets Anton Khudobin in return. They also, prior to that, added Evgeny Dandinov from Montreal, another depth forward guy. Hopefully, they're hoping he adds some scoring depth for him. Max Domi definitely adds that as well as some grittiness to him, right? So Dallas will hopefully benefit from that. We'll see. The Central's getting pretty tight as far as points. Minnesota and Colorado are coming on strong. Winnipeg's already fallen off. I think they're at a wild card position right now. And Dallas may do the same if they don't start picking it up because, like I said before, Minnesota and Colorado, they're coming. They are coming. Moving on, the New York Islanders. The New York Islanders started it all off, right? January 30th, they added Bo Horvat from Vancouver. Big guy, big name as far as this, as we got into the trade deadline. So Islanders are poised they're already in a playoff position. By adding Horvat, obviously, that gives them a lot of depth at that center position. They also added Pierre Engvall from Toronto. So we'll see if those additions help the Islanders maintain their position and maybe make some noise in the playoffs. We'll see. It's coming, so we're going to find out. The Tampa Bay Lightning, they didn't do a whole lot. Tampa kind of kept their current team intact. They did add Tanner Jeannot from Nashville. They sent Cal Foote, defenseman, back to Nashville. They sent a bunch, actually. Cal Foote, a first rounder for 2025, a second rounder in 2024, and a third, fourth, and fifth round pick in this coming draft. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players for one. It's a big deal, man. They have a lot of faith in this Tanner kid. Looking at his numbers, I wouldn't be all in like that for a player like that, but maybe Tampa sees something that I don't, right? I don't know. But that's Tampa Bay for you there. Moving on, the Vegas Golden Knights. Moving out back west, the Golden Knights, they're in a battle in the Pacific with the LA Kings for first place right now. What did they do? They went out and got Jonathan Quick, except they didn't get Jonathan Quick from LA. They got him from Columbus. Wait a minute. Jonathan Quick from Columbus. Yeah, that's right. So the Kings, a lot of Kings fans are upset about this. The Kings sent Jonathan Quick to the Columbus Blue Jackets in a big trade, we'll talk about it in a second, for a defenseman and a goalie. Well, Columbus basically did right and said, hey, and sent in a trade with Vegas, Jonathan Quick to the Vegas Golden Knights. So the Golden Knights obviously wanted to add depth to their goaltending, which has been a little bit question marky, going as we went along here. Logan Thompson, and he's been real good, right? But they need that, I don't know, depth at the goaltending position, basically, going into the playoffs here. So they add Jonathan Quick. They also added Ivan Barbashev from St. Louis and Teddy Bluger from the Pittsburgh Penguins. So a goalie, couple of forwards. They just added themselves, like I said, goaltending depth and forward depth to an already very good, solid team who's been winning games lately. Golden Knights looking good. They definitely added some good players and some depth. Colorado Avalanche. Okay, the Avalanche, like I just said before, they are making their move in the standings, and they've added Jack Johnson, who won a cup with Colorado last year, so they brought him back, and then they added Lars Eller as well. So they added a little bit of depth on the defensive, on the blue line, and in the forward group. So we'll see what they can do. They're already stacked. They're playing really well. I don't see there's just Colorado's going to keep going. You know what I mean? And I think they didn't tweak it too much. And that's probably a good thing. It really is. So Colorado, there you go. Watch for them to make a lot of noise here as we get into closer to the playoffs. The Pittsburgh Penguins, one of those teams that's kind of on the cusp of may not make it, may stay within the playoff race, which they still are in. They added from the Ducks, Dmitry Kulikov, solid D guy. He's had history of being inconsistent, and so he's jumped from team to team to team. Here's just another one for him. But I think he's a solid defensive guy. When you're going into the playoffs, somebody like Kulikov can step in and be a solid stay-at-home guy. And it's funny, watching him with the Ducks this season, there's times where he jumps in the offensive zone and contributes. And, so I don't know if he's going to do that in Pittsburgh, but hey, so the Penguins add Kulikov, and they also added Nick Bodino, brought him back. Okay, Nick Bodino has won cups with Pittsburgh in the past, and they also add Michael Granlund as well. So a couple of bottom six forward guys and a defensive guy to help with the depth going into the playoffs. So Pittsburgh, I think they did a good job there, especially with that Nick Bonino trade and the Granlund trade. You say Kulikov, added depth guy. Kings, moving on. LA Kings. Kings are in a race in the Pacific for that number one spot with Vegas right now. They went and added Gavrikov. Gavrikov was a highly touted defenseman out of Columbus. I have read some interesting stuff about Gavrikov being kind of overrated. So we'll see how that works out for LA. But they pulled the trigger, sent Quick to Columbus, and Columbus turned around and sent him to Vegas. But Gavrikov and Korpisalo, the goalie, is what the Kings added. They also added Zach McEwen, a depth guy. But we'll see if that helps the Kings defensively and then the goaltending side of things. I think, again, kind of like the Golden Knights, we're looking to add goaltending depth going into the playoffs by adding Quick. Korpisalo adds that for the Kings. And that's what they were looking for there. Couple of teams that are playoff bound that were pretty quiet. The Winnipeg Jets, they added Nito Niederreiter. That's kind of a big deal from Nashville, but nothing crazy. They also added Vladislav Namestnikov from San Jose. Just some depth forward group adds there that'll help Winnipeg hopefully get some more scoring, if you will, in there. But the Seattle Kraken. The Kraken have stayed pretty quiet. They really didn't do anything. Okay, Ron Francis is keeping his group and that chemistry that they've built this season together. He didn't want to mess with it. So interesting stuff. We'll see if it works out for Ron Francis and the Seattle Kraken. Listen, that's all I've got. Those are the teams that made some significant moves. Some of the teams like the Toronto Maple Leafs, for example, really went crazy. The New York Rangers, let's see what happens, right? I mean, it's going to be an exciting playoff year. I'm very excited to see what happens. So everybody stay tuned for that. And we'll see how these new faces on new teams work out. Okay. I think out of all that, if I had to throw in my 2 cents on who won at the trade deadline, geez, I mean, it's hard to say that Toronto didn't win that, because they added so many new faces. But I really honestly, I look at what Boston did, and I feel like Boston won. If you're going to, winners, losers, Boston was already number 1 team, the best team in the NHL, just got that much better with who they added. I think like Boston's just, man, they're it, man. I feel like this is their year. It's going to be hard to knock them off It just is. I think they're poised to make their run, and they're going to hoist that cup this year. I really do. Toronto definitely added a lot, and I think that's going to help them get out of that first round. I think they're going to do it. I think Tampa Bay, it looks like Toronto and Tampa are going to go at it in the first round from what it looks like as far as the standings are. If there's not a whole lot of movement and change, those 2 teams are going to go at it in the first round. Tampa's been to the Stanley Cup, 3 years in a row. They're going to go back into the playoffs, obviously. This year, they've got that pedigree, that experience to get through and maybe make some noise, but I don't know. Maybe this is the year Tampa loses in the first round and the Toronto Maple Leafs get into that second round. So we'll see. Either way, there you go. Hey, thanks for watching, guys. The trade deadline was crazy. It was fun to see all the different trades. My phone was lighting up left and right. Man, it was awesome. And the playoffs this year are going to be even better. So that's all I got. So thanks for watching. Help me blow this channel up. Subscribe and smash the like button on this video. And check out all my other videos for, I've got lots of trade rumor videos, which are, at this point, doesn't matter anymore, right? But lots of stuff like that. Lots of Anaheim Ducks videos. So, hey, go check them out. Smash the like button on this one. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Subscribe, okay? Thanks for watching as always. See you next time.